How are we going, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. We're going to be doing a retrospective today, and we're going to be talking about Coroner, Celtic Frost's cousins. So, I always say when I do these retrospectives that if I did a band with a smaller back catalogue, I'd somehow get them done quicker, but it never works out like that. So, yeah, what can we say about Coroner? So, Coroner are the band really that sort of in the 80s kind of pushed thrash metal in a more technical direction. They're certainly the band that get the credit or the blame for technical thrash metal, and their back catalogue today seems to be, the band seems to be bigger now than they've ever been. They've had a real cult following. I think splitting up, finishing and going away for a few years really does wonders for your career, because you end up getting offered a fortune to headline a load of festivals, and because you've split up, you've never really gone on to do really bad albums, so your legacy is just sitting there potent, a bit like these guys. And so Coroner was signed to Noise Records obviously being a very important record label based in Germany, pushing forwards, like the German thrash metal bands. Obviously Kreator and Tankard were on there. Was Sodom on Noise Records? Can't remember. I know Tankard and Kreator definitely were, but then we had like Sabbath, obviously Celtic Frost, and then obviously with Tom G. Warrior suggesting Coroner, Voivod and Watchtower be signed to the band, and they all were on there as well. There was My Ruin, Death Row. There was a pretty strong back catalogue that label put out, and it's all been reissued in the last couple of years to varying degrees, degrees of quality. Some are packed with extras, some are just bare basic, but it's all pretty much available. So I think this is a worthwhile collection of albums to talk about, and this is an important band in metal's evolution, and yeah, they seem to be bigger now than ever. I mean, on and off we've been getting inklings of a new album, but it was announced recently that Tommy Barron, the guitarist, has got some endorsement with some guitar company. They're not going to be doing them if there isn't some sort of activity planned, and they've just announced now that they're doing a tour of America next year with Deceased opening. So, it looks like something's going on. So, I guess we'll go back to the beginning and work our way through. So, the classic lineup of Coroner, they were a three-piece with, I'll give you their stage names and their real names now, but I'll just use the stage names going forward. So, you had Ron Royce on bass and vocals. Real name was Ronald Broder. Tommy T. Barron on guitar. Real name Thomas Veretti. And Markus Markey on drums, whose real name was Markus Eldman. And so the band formed in the early 80s as a five-piece originally, and Markus on drums is the original member. He was the one in the original five-piece. And they put out a demo in 1983 called Depth of Hell. I'll go through the five pieces now. So obviously you've got Markus on drums. You've got Pete Attinger on vocals, Tommy Rittner and Oliver Amberg on guitars, and Phil Pugsatai. I can't pronounce that. Sorry, but they put out the Depth of Hell demo in 1983. I don't know what this sounds like. I've never been able to find a copy, and I can't even find it on YouTube. So if anyone out there does have it or knows a link to it, please put it in the comments just so I can have a listen to it, because I've only ever heard snippets of the songs that are on like documentaries and things like that. So yeah, I don't know what that sounds like, so I can't really comment on it. But Tommy and Markus, no, we'll get to that a bit later actually. So they were in different bands. I think Ron Royce was in a band called Diamonds. They formed anyway, the three of them together, and put out a Death Cult demo in 1986. But Ron had not stepped up on vocals just yet. So they were the three of them. They'd wrote the music, didn't have a vocalist. They were looking for a vocalist at the time. And Tom Fisher, or Tom G. Warrior, as we all know from Celtic Frost, he was producing a demo, and they basically just asked him, do you mind singing on it? So there's 4 songs here initially. This particular edition has 6. But yeah, there's just a couple of bonus tracks. But we'll stick to those 4 songs. But yeah, Tom produced a demo as well as sung and wrote lyrics on 3 of the songs. So there you go. And it's a good little demo. Like I say, the Coroner's back catalogue got reissued in the last couple of years, as well as pretty much everything on Noise Records. And I don't know why this never got reissued, because it's really hard to get hold of. But yeah, it's really good. Spectators of Death is a little Celtic Frost, but you know, anything with Tom singing on it's going to sound like Celtic Frost, isn't it? But the riffs are really good. The drums are very... Think the first 2 Iron Maiden albums, but with a bit more of a death, you know, rawness to it. Spiral Dream is the same sort of thing, but it's got a good riff on the chorus and a pretty good solo. But you're going to get a lot of good solos going forward. Where is it? Aerial Combat. Awesome instrumental, really good. Again, very Maiden, but you know, some awesome guitar, fantastic drums, and you even get the old ooh thrown in with a nice acoustic outro as well. And The Invisible, 7 minutes, starts out with a nice doomy riff. Even is it like I think it follows like a thing of a classic song, like classic music, like dun dun dun, you know. But yeah, really good. I'm really glad to have a copy of this, and it should be easier to get hold of. But so there's the Celtic Frost, the Celtic Frost link. Tom helped them out, sung on their first demo, and was instrumental in helping them to get signed to Noise Records. And then I think 2 of them, I think Ron and Tommy, went on to roadie for Celtic Frost on the To Mega Pharaon tour. They toured supporting Celtic Frost later on as well. So the band gets signed to Noise Records and put out their first proper album, R.I.P. This is the Brutal Planet Records edition. I've showed a couple of these off now. I think they put out great reissues. They put everything out on a gold CD. They do really good layouts. They're really faithful to the original artwork and layout, and they add their own little notes and whatnot. Everything always comes with a baseball card as well, foil plated and all that. They put out really good editions of whatever album they put out, and yet people do get put off about the gold banner. Don't worry, you just flip it round and there's the original artwork there. So I've got the first 3 albums on Brutal Planet Records, and yeah, always worthwhile getting. So yeah, I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just recommend what I like. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. So a coffee, one sec. Ugh. I can't do that anymore because Tom's not in the band. He only did the demo, didn't he? But alright, R.I.P. Let's get into it. So this was released in 1987. You've got the 3-piece that are formed on that demo, but Ron has now stepped up. He's now doing bass and vocals and pretty much doing a Thomas Fisher impression. But he develops his own voice as the catalogue goes on. It's just under, well, it's 13 tracks, 40 minutes, 5 of which of these tracks are instrumentals. There's a lot of interludes and intro tracks, but it's pretty good. So you've got like an atmospheric intro track, which I really like, actually. If I was in the band today, I'd play that over the tannoys as the band come on. Excuse me. Reborn Through Hate is like a thrashier, more technical Celtic Frost. Very raw. There's a live feel to it. In fact, this whole album has got a live, raw feel to it, because I think it pretty much was recorded live. I think everything was done in one take. And I think if they didn't nail it, tough, it went on, you know. You got a cool instrumental with Nosferatu, very Iron Maiden. Suicide Command and Spiral Dream have got great solos and great main riff. The title track slows down a little bit, kind of melodic, but it kicks in a bit later on. Overall, it's everything you want from a debut album. It's a statement of intent. It's a band... On a debut album, a band really just shows what they're capable of, you know? And, yeah, this is the sound of a band throwing everything at the wall. Like I say, you've got 13 tracks, you've got instrumentals, you've got, you know... They experiment a little bit with song structures and timing and feeling and stuff like that. It works for me as one long listen. The standout tracks are... it's hard to sort of pick out, but the album does really work well as a whole, and I do really enjoy it. And yeah, it's what you want from a debut album, really. It's just that energetic, you know, this is our one chance, let's go for it. It's got that urgency to it. But yeah, next up, 1988, a year later, we have Punishment for Decadence. And here we go. I'll show you off the little baseball card. And yeah, here's the original artwork. Now this is a zoom in of a sculpture around a doorway of a museum, and I've got to say, this might be controversial, but I think this might be my favourite Coroner album. And in the same way, is if you're of the opinion that Master of Puppets by Metallica is Metallica's masterpiece, but you kind of slightly prefer Ride the Lightning because they haven't quite reached it yet, but you see that they're going for it and you know what's coming next, but you enjoy that it's not quite fully formed yet. That's kind of my reasoning for saying that this is probably my favourite album by them. They're a lot tighter on this album than what they are here. And when I say tighter, we've got 13 tracks on this. On this we've got 8. And 10 tracks actually, but one's a cover and one's an intro. And they sort of dropped what didn't work. They've just, everything's just tightened up, just, you know. And yeah, this is just a much more concise album. Mars Jackal, fantastic track. They did a video for that, pretty good one as well actually. And none of that as well. This is the thing as well. Coroner are always like, technical thrash metal, technical thrash metal. I don't think that it's so much they're overly technical, because when I hear technical, I think you know, and then it's just wankery. But Coroner aren't like that. They're just tight. I don't think they're overly technical. They're just really fucking tight. Yeah, that's what I think, really. But yeah, the whole technical thing, that I blame more on Watchtower, you know. And I don't think a band like what are they called? Who's that band that everyone's going on about, all spacey and weird? Vector. Vector would be more Voivod on Watchtower than they would have been Coroner, you know, and that's what I'm getting at. But yeah, like I say, Mars Jackal, brilliant. Skeleton on His Shoulder is got nice keyboards to it, which is cool. There's an atmospheric intro, and goes groovy, and then frantic as fuck as it goes on. Sudden Fall, another great song, really catchy, and The New Breed has got that real distinctive main riff to it. Yeah, I just really like this album, and it finishes with a not a terrible cover of Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix, and it's all right. It could have been a lot worse. It's pretty cool, but yeah, Punishment for Decadence, awesome. This is where Coroner really find their feet. They've arrived on this album. Now, the next two albums, I think, is generally considered the gold rush. One thing pointing out as well is that Punishment from Decadence from now on has this banner going down the artwork, and I think it always works really cool with the rest of the albums. Have that, and it's just like this. Yeah, you know, it's the real thing. You know, I like that. Nice little. It's not an effect, but a nice little touch to the art, because it, you know, it looks like a collection when you have it all together. So yeah, next up then, 1989's No More Colour. Generally regarded, this and the next album really, as the band's finest hour. Yeah, I would probably say I would have said Punishment for Decadence is probably my favourite, but this is probably their best. Make that and the next one. But yeah, 8 tracks, no intros, no instrumentals, just getting on with it. And this is probably their best produced album as well. Who produced the third album? I think it was someone like Jim Morris, someone like that. If it wasn't Jim Morris, it would have been the next album. Pete Hinton he produced it. Jim Morris must be the next album. But yeah, kicking off with Die By My Hands. It's awesome song. It's the type of song that like Coroner would have been known for today. No Need. It's No Need to Be Human is a bit slower, but a bit grimy. This one is probably the most. Where the first album there was like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it's all, you know, got this common thread going through it. Punishment for Decadence is like just really tight. It was kind of like their Raining Blood. It was just tunnel visioned. It was just like a real tight thrash fest. This is their most varied album so far. So yeah, No Need is a bit slower. It's a bit grimy. It's like there's a feel to it that's a kind of like got like a bluesy feel to it in a way, but it builds up into like a gallop as the song goes on. Amazing solo on No Need to Be Human. Read My Scars is a bit off, like an off-timed groove. It reminds me a little bit of Prong, and Prong is going to be coming up a lot when I make comparisons, like when I describe the music going forward. We're going to be less of the Celtic Frost comparisons, more in line with Prong going forward. In fact, I'll have to line up Prong's release dates of their albums and sort of see who did what first, because it's hard to tell who influenced who. But they've got a lot in common musically. But yeah, there's like a frantic sort of melodic riffage over the top of the equally amazing solo on Read My Scars. DOA, another one. It's a bit of an odd sort of main riff to it. It's very dark and very complex. As is Tunnel of Pain as well. Things are getting a bit off kilter, a bit odd timed. So I guess that's where the technical thrash thing may come from. But yeah, apart from that, awesome album. And then next up in 1991, we're into the 90s now, we get Mental Vortex. Now, I think pretty much, yeah, pretty generally speaking, most people would agree Coroner's best 2 albums are these 2. And yeah, if you are new to Coroner, if you've watched this video and you want to get into them, yeah, definitely start with these 2 and fill the gaps in from there. But where are we now? So Mental Vortex, underrated album actually, but again, the band never repeated themselves. They did 5 albums, but they never did the same album twice. So with Mental Vortex, sorry, No More Colour, we had, you know, just 34 minutes. So they keep getting the album run times just get shorter and shorter. Then all of a sudden, bang, Mental Vortex comes out. You got about 10 minutes extra, even 13 minutes extra music, and the opening track is 7 minutes long. We have Divine Step, and it goes in 7 minutes. It covers a lot of space, goes in a lot of different directions. You know, it starts off nice and thrashy and heavy. Then it kind of goes into this like sort of drony melodic section before finding itself and comes back to its original main riff, and then plays out nicely. Got Son of Lilith, and this is another nearly 7-minute song, sort of mid-paced, rolls along nicely. Probably a bit too long if I'm honest. Semtex Revolution is another great song with a great solo. At this point, the band has sort of mastered the song, their songwriting formula, and it sort of adds different elements into the songs, but they know at this point what works and what doesn't, so they know what fits and what won't. So they're not concerned necessarily at this point with being like the most heavy or the most technical of bands, although it's still face melting. It's still awesome. Sirens is another one with a bit of an odd time, but the riff, again, I'm getting Prong vibes on this. It's very complex. It's quite melodic as well. Metamorphosis is nice and groovy. It's dark and complex. Pal Sister, it's probably the most typical Coroner song on this album up to this point. That's the one that sounds more familiar to the previous 3 albums. And then About Life has got the drums on About Life are just mental. And and then we got a really cool cover of I Want You, She's So Heavy by the Beatles, and they do make the song darker and make it their own. Jim Morris produced this one, by the way, and I think it was his idea to do the album as well, do the song. I mean, pretty cool picture of the band there, and I think it's safe to say either No More Colour or Mental Vortex is the band's golden period, really. But it's 5 albums that is pretty solid. And right, let's get to the controversial album. So Mental Vortex was released in 1991 and was 47 minutes in total. That includes a 7-minute Beatles cover at the end, so 40 minutes. Next up, we get Grin in 1993, and this album is just under an hour long, and you get 10 tracks, and the average runtime, you get a couple of instrumentals, a couple of interludes, but generally speaking, you're looking at 7 to 8 minutes per song. So let's get into it. Grin. This is the one that splits the room. I'm all for a controversial album, an underrated album, a misunderstood album that probably didn't go down too well at the time. There's nothing really to show off in the booklet, but time's been kind to it. But to be honest, I've got to be honest, folks. This album is bloated. It's uninspired. It's self-indulgent, and above all, it's boring. I don't like this album. There you go. It's out there now. What was going on with the band? The band were. Every band gets to that point where they're running off each other. And then I think as they develop as musicians, as they develop as songwriters, not everyone keeps up and not everyone ends up on the same page. So they get to a point where they find their peak, and then they kind of find their formula, and they more or less stick to it going forward, or the band just dislodges and break up. And it seems like this was what was going on with the band at the time. So Tommy Barron is basically the main. I think it was all pretty much split evenly at this point, but I think Ron does writing on 2 of the songs. This is predominantly written by Tommy Barron, and it shows because it's very much a guitarist's album. I think the songs they're too repetitive. They go on too long, and all the drums are very straightforward. There's a bit more groove to it. Apparently the band were okay with that because they found stuff that was simpler to play was more fun to play, which I can appreciate. But it said at the time that Markus, technically as a drummer, wasn't keeping up with Tommy as a guitarist, and I don't think either of them were really keeping up with where Tommy wanted to go musically. But I mean, it's got its moments. The Serpent Moves, Paralyze. You know, there's some amazing solos on there, and there's some good riffs, and there's some good songs, and good parts of the songs. But they don't need to be 7 to 8 minutes long. And I just find the album as a whole, it just drags. Now, it's Tommy Barron's favourite album, and there are a bunch of people that will defend this album, and I'll let you hang about with them. I've kind of given up on those arguments. But if you like it, good for you. But I just, for me, I can appreciate it where it is now and how well it's aged, and Tommy as a songwriter, and, you know, apparently it's Tommy's favourite album, but whatever, man. I can't get into it. Apparently it took forever to record, and the record label guy ended up fucking intervening and hiring a session basis just to get it done. So this guy like done it it was like you would knock an album out in like 12, 20 days. It's like 3 weeks and the drums isn't even finished, you know, stuff like that. So it looked like the band had started to burn out at this point. So the band did more or less split at this point. Tommy went on and did a bit of touring as a session guitarist for some mainstream artist. And then they had one album left in their deal. So they put out Coroner. Let's get this. This is quite rare. This didn't come out with the reissues, actually. And this is 4 new songs and a bunch of odds and sods. It's worth getting if you are a Coroner. Well, no, I suppose in a lot of ways you could get this one first, because, you know, it is a best of. Arguably the best songs are on there. You'll certainly get a good intro into what the band sound like, but it's a good completion piece because of the 4 new songs. The 4 new songs are pretty much what you get on here. I mean, if you like this, it's worth getting them. If you don't like this, don't bother. It doesn't do much to rescue it from how I felt about that. And then the band did a farewell tour, and that was that. Until they reformed. What time did they reform? They reformed, you know, the same time pretty much everyone else did. They finished in 1996 and reformed in 2010, doing a bunch of festivals, all that good stuff. And then when did they put this out? 2016, I believe. Yeah, six years later. They put out, that's what I forgot to tell you. I knew I forgot something. When No More Colour came out, they put out a live video. Sabbath put out a live video as well. It was on this record label, and it looks like it was filmed at the same indoor festival. Must have filmed everyone, and everyone just got a video out. It got released in 1991 or 1992. I've not got a copy, obviously, so I couldn't show it off, but they put out a live video at that point. That live video, keep a note about that. Right, so 2016, Coroner put out this mammoth DVD collection. 3 DVDs, 1 CD. Right, disc number 1, you get Coroner Rewind, which is a documentary going all through the band's history, interviews with everyone, interviews with all different bands. None of it's in English, it's all subtitled. You've got loads of bands that you've all heard of: Sodom, Celtic Frost, Opeth. Yeah, bunch of bands, all of them sing in English, but in this it's all hoodly 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 god garden, and you have to read the subtitles. So it's good though, and you get the whole story, pretty much what I've just told you. But it's a really good documentary if you are a fan of the band. It's about an hour and a half long. Really, really good. Then disc 2, you get 17 or 16 live tracks. Basically a compilation of their reunion gigs. Some are at a festival, some are at a club. It's edited really well together. It's really good. Now, here's one thing. They play a lot of Grin, which means they stand by this album. And funnily enough, they open with Golden Cashmere Sleeper, which is one of the tracks on here. So their later stuff, like, it's not like they just went, they got a bit weird at the end and we don't talk about these albums. No, the band stand by them And a lot of this album, about 4, 5 songs off this, get played. And I will say to its credit, the songs on this sound a hell of a lot better on this. So, yeah, it did kind of make me want to reconsider that album, but not a lot. So yeah, that's about another hour and 20 minutes worth of live footage from the reunion gigs, and they sound and play really, really good. Then disc number 3. Do you remember that live video that I told you about a second ago? That is on here. It's about 45 minutes long, and it's awesome. Well worth getting. And then you've got the Masked Jackal music video, the I Want You video, Lost Entertainment music video, and then, now, I know what you were thinking, back at the beginning, when Thomas Fisher was singing in the band, wouldn't it be good if they played songs off this album? Wouldn't it be good if Celtic Frost and Coroner are in the same place and Tom could come out and do the songs with him? Well, funnily enough, it did happen in 1986. And you get that when the Coroner, I think it was Celtic Frost, Kreator and Coroner were the tour. Imagine that. Fucking hell. And yeah, on here you've got, it's camcorder footage, so it's a bit grainy to look at, but it sounds great. And yeah, Tom comes out and does Spectators of Sin with them. It's really good. They do the Invincible in the rehearsal footage, and then there's a couple of little clips from their 1996 farewell tour. And then disc 4 is audio, a few live tracks on there as well. So yeah, almost 6 hours of footage. Now, if you are a Coroner fan and you've not got this, this is essential. I cannot recommend it enough. You've got loads of live stuff. It's all really good. You've got a really good documentary. You need to get this if you're a Coroner fan. So, and like I say, it kind of, these songs sound really good on it as well, even though it's my least favourite. So yeah, that's Coroner, folks. And like I say, we keep getting inklings of, oh, right. The documentary on this comes up to the point where Markus Marquis leaves the band. Arguably the only original member, because he was the member in the 5-piece at the beginning, but nothing that 5-piece did was relevant to what the band went on to do. I think the true proper lineup formed on this and the RIP album, and it was the 3-piece. But yeah, he says I intended to reform just to do some. Sorry, I'm just messing about with something here. Just to do some reunion shows. It's obviously going beyond that, and it's not something I'm really up for doing. So, but even then, that was 2016 when this was released, and well, we're coming up to 2025, and we've still not got a new album, and we keep hearing about it. So I don't know if there's one that's they've just never got round to recording it, or is it been recorded and they're just waiting for the right time to release it? Maybe the lockdowns and everything put a wrench in the proceedings. I don't know, but the band are touring, and they're doing a really big tour of America next year, and that's only going to snowball into further activity. So I'm guessing something is in the pipeline somewhere. Who knows? We'll see. Right, that's it then, folks. Thanks for watching this. What do you think of Coroner? What do you think of Grin? Do you think I was wrong about that? What's your favourite album? Have you ever seen them live? Are you going to see them in the new year? What do you think of the band's legacy? Give me all that good stuff in the comments. If you've made it from this far, I think I deserve one of them. Help me out with the algorithm and all that. I've got to push it because no one else does, you know. Yeah, Coroner, definitely. They're definitely the ones to start off with. For my 2 pence worth, that's my favourite. That's a really good debut album. Get that if you can get hold of it, but don't drive yourself mad. I'll leave this one up to you. Not essential, but if you can find it cheap enough, get it, or even get it first as an overview. Mind you, you don't need to buy something to see if you like it, because you've got YouTube and Spotify now. But yeah, pick it up as a completion piece if you can. But if you are a Coroner fan, you definitely need that as well. So, right, that's about all. Thanks for watching, everyone, and yeah, top 10 of 2024 coming next week, and I'll try and get that in just before Christmas, or maybe that little bit in between Christmas and New Year. But yeah, I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye for now.